First of all, congratulations to you both. This is one of the greatest audience films I've ever seen. I've seen it twice, once at TIFF, once at the premiere. For you, it could be a movie you were in or a movie you weren't in. Besides Knives Out, what is your favorite audience communal film that you've seen where the audience helped enhance the experience for you?
Ooh,
oh my God.
God, that's a good question. I think a lot of horror movies have the power to do that, a lot of those shared collective experiences. When I saw Gravity in theaters,
Same, man.
Everybody was just so physically moved by this kind of visceral experience from not only being in space, but the camera work was amazing. So maybe I'll say Gravity.
Yeah.
And Chivo is just a genius.
Yeah,
For you, is there a film that kind of like the audience made it better for you?
I like cartoons, like children's
That's awesome.
movies.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
It's so beautiful to be in the theater with families and children, and they just really have no filter, and they don't sit, they stand actually, and you see all the little heads, and they just react, and it's just, and I'm one of them.
Inside Out. Inside Out.
Inside Out is genius.
Everyone in my row was crying.
But, well,
First 20 minutes
and
of
it
Up.
is for adults too. Like, I think it's a really adult movie. It's
I
like-
was crying too.
WALL-E is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
My wife and I watch WALL-E all the time. I think one of my favorites of all time was being at the Endgame premiere and seeing you say Avengers Assemble. Was that as cool to say it as it was for us to watch it?
The big worry was that we chose to have it be a whisper delivery as opposed to a screaming delivery.
Interesting.
And the question was, is there going to be power? But the Russos know how to build it with the camera, and there's a lot of moments in it. Endgame, that's the only movie I've ever really sat through in a premiere. And it was the first time I had seen it. So yeah, there were a lot of moments in there where I was getting goosebumps. Just because it was the end of an era, and that was a real nice communal experience as well.
What is your favorite audience experience where an audience enhanced the movie, made it more communal for you?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll tell, there's one experience I can tell, which is I saw Blade Runner, and I was the only person in the audience because that movie tanked
No one saw
when it came out. So I went to see it at my local cinema, sat in a movie theater, and had no idea what it was because it just kind of, where I lived, films used to sort of do the rest of Europe and and then very scratchy prints used to arrive at kind of like, so you'd sort of go and go, wow, what's that? And some terrible poster would be up, and you'd go in. And I walked in and had my orange juice and my popcorn, and sat there, and this movie came up, and I was like blown away. So that's my one exhausting experience. I've had kind of ones where, first time being in New York, seeing a movie in New York.
Remember the movie?
I don't. I remember the audience, because it was just like, what's going on? Because people were just screaming at the screen. It was just like this whole kind of like event that I'd never, because we're very well behaved in England. We kind of sit very quietly and watch things.
And for you, you were telling me the other night about watching Halloween for the first time with an audience, but what about a movie you weren't in?
Anything my husband has made is so pleasant to be able to sit in a theater and watch Best in Show with an entire house. Because comedy, when it works, that release that laughter gives us as ourselves and communally, there's just, it's
Nothing
not
like it,
unlike
right.
horror where the same thing, the release of fear and screaming, but done then in a sort of cacophony is sort of exciting. But when a comedy works, and obviously he makes movies that are funny, with a full, like in Westwood, like with 2,000 people, it's just incredibly fun.
Cool.
Inarritu's The Revenant.
Yeah. What was going on in the crowd? Was it the bear scene where everyone got crazy, or?
I think it was just the incredible tension and the incredible edge of your seat expectations that Inarritu created for that film, and you really felt the audience be with it. Another one that is really fun to see with an audience is Avatar.
Yes, Cameron's 3D.
And Titanic.
Yeah.
Good, fun movies to see with an audience. Gosh, I would imagine that Chinatown was like that.
Oh man, I could not have. You imagine seeing Psycho with an audience? That would have been so cool.
And oh my God! And how about? That would have been amazing.
I think any film that kind of uses humor or something that unites an audience can be enhanced by an audience. So like, I know that towards the end we were talking about Harry Potter this morning, like the love of Harry Potter, or we were talking pen Deadpool. Like, yes, you know.
I saw Deadpool like 6 times. I love that movie. I mean, you're a fan too. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
And
anything
for
like
you,
that.
anything that was crazy with an audience?
It's gonna sound funny, but I saw the new Purge, and like I don't know, but that sticks in my mind. The crowd just had so much fun.
That's cool. Now I'm gonna curse only because the line in the movie "Eat Shit" is so great. And we had Rian on our podcast yesterday, and he told me a great story that it was originally "F you" in the script.
Yeah,
And
F off.
F off. So how were you originally planning on delivering that, and how did "Eat Shit" come about?
I actually liked F off, but then he kind of said on the day, I don't know if we can do that for the rating thing, we can get R. And so then they had a couple lines like "kiss my ass" or something, and I was like, that doesn't feel right. And there was someone I know in my life who used to love to say, not just "eat shit," they'd say "eat my shit." And I would always say, God, that's such a funny phrase and really underutilized. Like literally "eat shit." It's such a
I have a shirt that says "Eat Shit" because of this movie.
It's such a specific thing, and it's so funny. I was like, that would work to go down the line.
Yeah.
So I asked if that was okay, and he said, that's perfect.
That's amazing.
So,
The vomiting aspect is so funny to me, and it's also a perfect continual bit throughout the film.
Yeah.
But you take it at one point.
Oh yeah.
And I was curious about the filmmaking of that. Did they just throw it on you? Like, for each of you, how did that scene work without giving away what's going on?
They had a little mechanism, a little machine that would, blast this stuff out, and they did a couple test, practices in front. You're like, all right,
we went out. We went outside to the
Outside,
grass,
that's right.
and we had this baby food, and we were adding water to different consistencies, and all of us, Ryan, Chris, everybody just put it in their mouth and started projecting this baby food on the grass to see which one would go farther.
Yeah.
Everyone tried, yeah.
Where's this footage?
It ended up, we
don't know.
we used this one machine, and it really was very effective. And the hardest thing is to not, I've done movies where you're going to get smacked and things like that. And most times you start doing that bracing face, and so you really have to just let your face.
Well, the good thing is that they gave me the pulse. So I was like acting the whole scene, but he wouldn't know when I was.
So it was a genuine surprise, like Die Hard when Alan Rickman falls.
Yeah, and you just have to let your face be slack and just not see it coming.
I would not do it every take in the same place, so he was always surprised.
Yeah,
the
I
greatest
enjoyed
thing
that
ever.
thing a lot.
Bring that back in all your movies, guys. Thank you so much for wrapping me up. Thank you for talking.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
One of my favorite bits in this film is this bit where they talk about your character being a light sleeper, and they cut to these moments of like these big bangs.
But it's I can't tell you because I would read that in the script and I go, what the hell do I do there? And I watched Amy give this masterclass of waking up, like literally like
It's
number
perfect.
3, number 4, number 5. Each is completely different from the last one.
Are you two light sleepers in real life? Would that stuff wake you up?
Well, we're both parents.
No, well,
You're not are you a parent?
I'm not a parent. My wife and I have been married 3 years. We don't have kids yet.
Okay, wait. Because the minute you have a child, your sleep pattern changes 100%. You will never solidly sleep again.
no.
Solidly sleep, like in a dark black cave of slumber, because you're always attuned to it. You're just.
But I'm attuned to that. I'll sleep through a hurricane, but I won't sleep through my daughter crying.
Which makes sense.
I mean, it's just literally, it's like that noise will wake me up.
Yeah.
My wife can be like jumping around in the room and doing that.
And you can say, yes.
Yeah.
But there is something about children. I will tell you one thing, though.
Yeah.
So in a big ensemble movie, usually if you're the star of a movie, they will schedule you accordingly. And if you owe a shot walking down the hall, they're not going to keep you for 2 weeks on location to get the shot of you walking down the hall. But because this was so intricate, there were so many moving parts, so many people, that scene of Linda waking up was a little one-off set. It was it was a little corner of a room, and they built a bed and a night table to do these. And
Don just sleeping.
I waited.
Was it Don next year?
Yes, but and Don, by the way, had monogrammed pajamas. I mean, they went, and that's the beauty of Jenny Egan, the costume designer. Yeah. Don had monogrammed pajamas, probably a monogrammed robe and slippers, but he was curled up in bed. You didn't see them, but he wore them. But I think I waited 1 week on location, away from home, to just come to do those little wake-ups. Right. Like they were scheduled in such a way, and they had to be scheduled in that way. So anyway, you brought it up.
No, I love those scenes. That's why I brought it up. It's a great moment. It works really well. It's cool to know the behind the scenes of it. So,
but it's also, I mean, it's like great acting, but also Rian, great acting. But it's Rian using that in exactly the right way to make the story, to keep the story just bumping along at that point.
Those moments.
Because you go, oh, I know where I am. It's brilliantly done.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I wish they weren't wrapping
Oh,
up.
no, we would give you the whole day.
I wrote 8 questions for you guys.
No,
I only
we
got to
would
2.
give you an entire day.
Oh,
you should have an entire show of your own, which you do. You have a podcast.
You should come on the podcast.
Which I will, of course.
And this is just a goofy question because you've played so many great characters in your career. Could you imagine your Miami Vice character somehow getting on this case and trying to figure it out? Like,
that would have been funny.
Would he have any idea like what to go for? Like what he would do? He was a great detective.
Sonny Chalk is a pretty good detective, so he'd probably figure it out, but maybe not with having as much fun.
Right.
Well, he might have come in and killed half the family before he got to, oh shit, I'm sorry, I killed all those people. But
yeah.
Anyway, no, this film, what everyone says, and it's so thrilling for me, is that it's so much fun.
Yeah, I've sat down with you before, and you've worked with some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, Tarantino and Django. I mean, like, you think about these directors that have directed you over the years. Do you remember the first time you ever walked on a set and got action yelled at you?
Yeah, it was my very first film. I was the lead in the film. It was for MGM. The film turned out to be a terrible film.
What was it?
It was called The Magic Garden of Stanley's Sweetheart.
Now I need to see this.
Oh, no, you don't. Although there are some curious things in it, like I met all of the Andy Warhol gang were in the movie. There's a big party sequence, and Candy Darling and Joe D'Alessandro and all of the factory folks were in that party sequence. It was fabulous, so I remember, in the first shot we were down on Broadway, and they'd brought in, these were back when cameras were this big, and 4 big burly grips had to carry the camera in, and it was a shot, he wanted the shot I was sitting at a counter, one of those Broadway diner counters. He set the camera on the counter, and it took up the whole counter, and they did a whole number about securing the camera and all this stuff, and action. And it was like, this camera's like right here. Whoa. I'm going like, okay, bring it.
Well, I'm going to start off with a question I think would be interesting to hear an answer to. What if Blanc were to walk into the set or the script of Brick and work on that case? Like, how do you think he would play with that?
I would think he would get beaten up. I think because the thing is, the film noir genre is so different from the murder mystery genre, from the whodunit. There's a moral ambiguity, and you have these anti-heroes beating the crap out of each other, and whodunits are very civilized, and so I don't think they would mix well.
I think it'd be a funny experiment to watch him.
It would be, I think. I don't know if he would last long.
That's cool. You obviously seeing a Rian Johnson whodunit on a poster or in a trailer. As somebody who's been a fan of whodunits for so long, just what did it mean for you to see that on a poster and see? I mean, I understand you wrote it, you directed it, but it's got to be a little bit surreal.
It's very surreal, and I've grew up reading Agatha Christie. The whodunit genre, it's such a specific genre. It's something that for me is like comfort food. I keep coming back to it. It's something I have literally always wanted to do my whole life, and so to have finally done one with this cast, to put it out there like this, I don't know, it feels pretty amazing, man.
We discussed yesterday on the podcast about the eat shit line, which originally was an FU line in the script. I was just curious about the process of you and Chris working that out to make it eat shit. In regards to, like, does it come from both of you? Or are you sitting in a room going, all right, we have to make this 13, not R? Like, how does that work out? Yeah,
I mean, I had done a lot of the transforming of the language already, but then when we got on set, that was one where I threw it to Chris, and I was like, well, if it's not FU, what is it? And he was the one who said, well, I think eat shit will work. And I was like, yeah, I think that will. Yeah.
This is a film that really works for an audience really well. And one thing I asked you on the red carpet was about this idea of playing with the audience, the idea of making us go towards a certain person, making us think it's that person, but then twisting it around.
Sure.
How much of the script does that, in the sense of how much do you have to think about the audience being pulled in, thinking it's this person, and then playing with their minds? Is that part of the writing process?
It is a little bit. I mean, for me, the big thing with this movie was I almost wanted to take the pressure off the audience of guessing who done it. I wanted it very early to say, look, maybe there'll be a big twist, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Don't worry about it, kind of. Let's go on a ride together. I wanted this to feel more like a roller coaster than a crossword puzzle. Yeah. And I think that leads to a better audience experience because the whole audience is going on a ride, basically, as opposed to trying to figure something out.
One of my favorite shots in the film is you have this shot where you're pushing towards Daniel Craig as he turns around into the shot with the knives.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, like, pulling that shot off, the timing of that. It's such a perfect moment. It's in the trailer. That shot looks glorious.
Yeah.
Do you remember pulling it off?
I do. That was partway through this big long end sequence, and we had this whole knife sculpture, and I hadn't really gotten up and used it yet. I was like, we gotta do a shot where we really use these knives. And so I set that thing up, and I said to Daniel, this is kind of cheesy, but try doing this. And then after we did it, I remember going back to the monitors, and my wife was back there, and she was still laughing from watching it. I was like, okay, that worked.
Forgive my ignorance, because I'm not somebody who would call myself a gigantic fan of the whodunit genre, but now I am because of your films, and you've gotten me into so many different genres with your movies. But the knife sculpture, that circle, can you talk about the significance of that? Why the family has that in their house, and what is that there for as a director to tell the audience?
Well, the idea with all this stuff that you see here is it's Harlan's house, and my whole idea was every time he writes a book, he kind of creates a prop from that book as a memento. And so there's different things around the house that are kind of supposed to be. And he also obviously just collects weird stuff.
What's the knife one from?
So the knife one is from 1,000 Knives, which is the one that Noah calls out in it, which is literally 1,000 knives. But it is also just kind of a religious icon made out of knives that I thought would be an interesting visual backdrop.
Well, that's awesome, man. It reminded me of like the throne in Game of Thrones, the idea of
how
important it was, Yeah. Thank you so
real
much.
Pleasure.
My wife actually was just with your sister.
Oh, really?
She visited the set of After in Atlanta, and she's like the biggest After fan on the planet. She's like read the books and watched all the movies, and she was interviewing your sister like as she was shooting a scene.
Crazy.
And she wanted me to tell you. Actually, my wife wanted to know if you've seen the After movies and if you loved it.
You know what? It's so bad. I have so many films that I need to watch right now, and like I have a bunch of them on my list. So yeah, I'm gonna get to it.
Highly recommend it. Tell her she did a good job.
I love your typing.
Oh, thank you, Deadpool. Thank you.
So good.
The beauty of this movie is the whodunit, the mystery of it, the reveal of it, and the beauty of it is that mystery. And you worked on a great show that had a mystery element to it with 13 Reasons Why. And I was curious, like, how a show like that with a mystery element prepares you for a mystery movie like this. They're very different genres, but is that mystery element something that you kind of learned from that show that you could pull over to here?
It's interesting. I think one of the biggest pulls to this film for me is that it's so different to anything that I've ever done before.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the great thing about this film is it's not just, like, obviously it is an homage to Agatha Christie and that mystery genre which we all love and know, but it's also so fresh and so different and original. And we were saying, people ask, like, if someone spoils it or if you find out who did it first, is that going to ruin the movie? And I think you obviously please don't go and spoil it for everyone.
Yeah, don't.
But I think it's not just about the mystery, and that's the great thing in this film is it's like there's so many things to latch onto and so many elements within this film that make it exciting and entertaining and engaging. So that's been really cool to be a part of.
There's a bullying aspect to this movie that I latched onto because as somebody who was bullied a lot in middle school and high school, and your character is he's on his phone, but he's being made fun of a lot by his family. I was curious, like, do you have to have bullying experience in your life, like have been bullied to tap into something like that? Because for me, it felt real watching what your characters were going through. Is that something that you can tap into when you deal with that in a movie?
I think the thing about these characters is that they're all bullies in a sense.
Yeah.
But they're all the bullied. I think that this family is so nasty to each other that it breeds this kind of outward hatred, and I feel like that's just a part of being human, is to understand that. So you don't necessarily need to tap into direct experiences of being bullied, but that's just what human, it's not the most beautiful quality, but it is human, and that's a fact, is that you want to direct your anger towards something that's smaller than you. And so Jacob directs his anger towards into racism, and which is disgusting, but that's a part of being human, is that they kind of created that. The family created that, even though they make fun of him for it. They started it.